So hello, everybody. For some reason, my Adobe Audition for this episode will not let me upload my intro music. Don't really need it anyways. Just want to give you a heads up. Me and Margaret were chatting for a while and had a great time, and I just finally had to tell her, Mike, we could keep chatting it, and I would forget to record. So we talked about her consulting and new coaching, and the quality, employee morale. It's amazing what we went into. Um, just a little quick push. I'm trying to get more subscribers via podcast feeds and reviews because that helps me out when wanting to reach out to awesome people like Margaret saying, hey, I have X amount of following, this many reviews, this much of an email list. Like, would you come on to give me like 30 minutes to an hour of your time? It makes it easier for me. Um, Other than that, yeah, so subscribe to the podcast if you're in for it. YouTube. I'm working on that. Seems YouTube does not appreciate Zoom calls, so that's I'm trying to figure out how that works. Maybe buy a package on Adobe for After Effects and do the sound wave thing. But either way, um, yeah. So here we go, guys. Let's get right into it.
Well, okay.
Don't worry about this. I'll cut out this so it makes more sense. I'm just chatting with you.
Sure.
So for you said your the consulting part, it has changed and shifted to more like instead of big business, more small businesses. Is that's what I heard? Was that correct?
I grew up in large businesses and medium businesses and not for profits. So I've been in the business world my whole career,
Okay.
and I'm a volunteer in the quality area with the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award Program. So I'm shifting now toward coaching. My focus is with overworking small business owners who are losing track of their family. They're not getting exercise. They're stressed, over challenged. I'm helping them find more time in it, and part of that is with looking at where they want to be spending their time, where they're spending it, and helping them put a plan together to shift.
Hmm.
And also looking within this in the business, because I look for ways. I look for ways to improve processes, uh, find areas that can be improved. So it's both the personal side and the business side to get them more time.
So does that like include automation and outsourcing to like the Philippines or hiring like your nephew for cheap or something like that?
Absolutely. What I've found with small business, with entrepreneurs, they have great ideas. They put it to market, they nurture it, and they grow it.
Hmm.
And they're used to doing everything themselves. So
Yes.
we want to step back and look at those things that can be outsourced to contractors or partners or new hires or whatever, that
Hmm.
they can focus on what's most important in the business, the strategy, the customers, and the financials.
Right. Okay. So I'm actually really curious for something you mentioned earlier. You're focusing on the small business owner that's busy, doesn't have time for himself, or specifically exercising. Um, how do you specifically find those? Because that's a very that group's not usually when they're like that, they're not open-minded, like we should call someone for help. They're just like, we'll just buckle down harder, kind of thing. So how do you find those guys specifically, or gals?
Um, I work through LinkedIn
Okay.
and uh, other colleagues who are coaching in different parts in different functions. For example, I have a consulting partner who focuses on HR, so hiring.
Okay.
And we're not
That's
in,
actually really
he
specific. That's good.
helps people hire people. And so we're working together. So it's a combination of research and offering services, teaching, those kinds of things.
I like it. And then also now podcasts too. That's a great way to get people.
Yes, that's what I've been told, and I'm grateful that you invited me to join your podcast.
Yeah. Actually, it's really funny. I was just telling my father, I said, yeah, I've been having a lot of people reach out, but when I send them my link, there's like 10 people now I'm waiting. They haven't clicked it. They're like, oh, this is too good to be true. I'm like, it's funny. It's hard for me to get people like you on too. And it's hard to get on shows. So it's like that mutual, I need people and you need to get on, but no one's talking to each other. So it's just a weird thing I've noticed recently. But yeah, no, sorry, I had a little spastic thought there. But I enjoy this, like the chat with you, and I like that. Like I was telling you on the emails before we actually got on air and I started recording. It's like this is just like I invited you to coffee shop near your house or office or wherever, and just be like, tell me about your life, kind of thing.
Well, I'm interested in what you're interested in too. So tell me more about you and your travels. You seem to enjoy traveling, right?
Yes, I do. My biggest one recently, I went to Italy last year, actually around this time last year.
That's a good
So
time.
it is. It was right at the tail end is when it got hot, but it wasn't like unbearable. It was just instead of like, because here in California we can easily hit 115. It was more like 90 something with dry heat. Wasn't bad at all. The view was so worth it. We went to like Turkey, and there's a place where we landed. There's an actual like castle and everything, made like 6,000 BC. Gorgeous. I
Wow.
was I was climbing in that castle. The funny thing is, I was going up to it. This one guy in a wheelchair had a big iguana and a parrot. He's like, "You want to take a photo with the lizard? 20 US." And I'm like, "Nah, I'm good, dude." And I held up my wallet. I'm like, "I don't have cash anyway, so I can't pay you." And he looks and he's like, "All right, fair enough. I won't charge you. You still want a lizard picture?" I'm like, "Okay, sure." Kind of thing.
That's a
He's
good
like, "It was." And then I was just walking around the castle and I asked him like, "Hey," because he was handicapped. I'm like, any areas you recommend to the view?" He pulls out his wheelchair. He's like, "Dude, this thing is all terrain. It's like an ATV." And he's like, and he shows his seat all moving. And he's like, "I can get all over this place." He said, "You want to go in the back?" He's like, "Careful though, there is a medieval pit." He's like, "And if you fall in, no one's gonna find you," kind of thing. I was like, "Ooh, I want to see the pit now." He's like, "But if you get up there and you climb around a certain rock, the view is amazing. The tourists don't even know it exists." So
yes.
it was gorgeous. Like the water was more blue. There was no boats really there. And I just sat there and I watched it. I was like, this is amazing. This is like that little slice of heaven on earth kind of thing.
Yes. Wonderful. Wonderful.
But tell me about yourself. So you were giving me a little bit of your history in the beforehand. Tell everyone now like like what you do what led up to you like coaching and just like that whole backstory.
Okay. Well, I enjoy helping people.
Okay.
Um, as I
Have you
say,
always
I have
done
a
that?
lot of experience in business work and in working with volunteers and um, people in general. And my passion is quality. And
Quality, okay.
one definition of quality is doing the right things right. So doing the right things is your strategy to make sure that you have a strategy and you know that you're focusing on the things that will help the business. Doing
Okay.
things right is the part of execute, that you are delivering what your customers want. You're building what you want to build or create for customers. So it's two sides of, are you doing the things you really want to be doing, you say you want to be doing? And then are you delivering what your customers want? So what I'm skilled in is looking at processes. Because processes are how you run your business.
Right.
When your processes aren't lined up, you may have duplicate work. So people are doing the same things and you only need one person to do that thing. Or there are gaps, or you're not reaching out to your customers to know, am I delivering what you want? You know, getting feedback
Right.
from customers is really very important.
Mm-hmm. I'm just curious in your quality and how you assess things. Does also employee morale come into play? Because if the employee morale is low, the quality goes down, kind of thing.
I'm having a little trouble hearing you. You're asking about dealing with morale.
Morale. Yeah.
Okay. Leadership is responsible for everything.
Okay.
And studies have shown that employees employees dig into the work when they're appreciated. So if they don't feel appreciated, they are more likely to look somewhere else. So it's the leader's responsibility to understand what the work is about and learn how to get feedback from employees and appreciate them. Women have a more natural flair for intuition and reading people and getting feedback. So most of the articles I've read recently about employee turnover is the men don't get it. They may have to study the feminine side of themselves and not be ashamed of it.
Right.
So when I coach leaders, we go through for example, how do they get feedback from their employees? What does their turnover number look like? And compare it to other kinds of businesses that might be similar, so that they see there's a number there that's not as good a number as they want. So sometimes people are numbers people and they're not people. So
Yeah.
to discuss how to become more of a people person, and maybe the HR person can advise as well.
This is
Does that
true.
make sense?
Yeah. No, and that touches on something because a while ago I used to do security, and really long story short is essentially one of the big bosses was like, hey, why is my number suffering at this place? I'm like, well, that guy with the neck tattoo with the Hellgate and the demon spawn coming out, he's like, yeah, Chuck. I'm like, well, Chuck just literally wished he could break his leg and go home unpaid for 6 months instead of working for you for one day.
Oh
And I'm
my.
like, I said he literally wanted to get in a car crash and not come to you for 6 months. I'm like, you have a morale problem. That's why your quality sucks. I'm like, the word morale has more power than what's actually going on here, kind of thing. So I just told him, like, dude, we're humans. We love games. Even the non-competitive shy love games, kind of thing. And I said, sad to say, for a W-2 worker on minimum wage, $100, sadly, is really game changing. And I'm like, can you spare $100? He's like, yeah, I usually buy my steak dinners at $2.50 and I go twice a week. I'm like, I don't know where you go for steak dinner at $2.50 a shot, but I want one of those. So, and I said, can you spare 2 steak dinners a week and then give that just cash, not even company money, just your cash to them? And he's like, oh yeah. Within 1 month, they went from, like, let's say number 6, like 200,000 packages a day at $1 each to 1 million a day at $1 each.
Wow.
I literally just said, think of a game. I said, you've been in your ivory tower too long saying, make more money for me, kind of thing. And you forgot what it's like to be the manager in the field, kind of thing. I told him, I said, remember when you were a manager, you would go buy that expensive guy down the street with the company card because you're like, I want to try him for myself, but I'm gonna use company dollars. Plus, everyone did good. He's like, he had the biggest grin. He's like, yeah. I'm like, you haven't done that in like 30 years. So he did. He did a blowout. Their production was insane. It was under a month and a half, and that's where he.
Outstanding.
But that's what I was asking. But he even said the quality, the injuries were lower. There was no more call off. People were actually like, begging for second shifts because they wanted to increase their numbers for the game. I didn't even tell him how to set up the game. I just said, this is an idea. You should do it.
Ah,
Kind of thing. And that's where I was curious if that's a similar thing for you. And it sounds like yes. Not to that, not what I did, but a similar thing. Yeah. But I kind of said it without saying it, like you said earlier, like you don't remember the feeling part of your employees because you were in the trenches with them. So you're like, oh crap, John's really struggling. I better go get him like a snake, go buy him a snack or something, just to give him some calories, but also like, oh crap, boss bought me a soda. Like I'm gonna work harder today, kind of thing. But yeah, that's like my favorite one. And then like to finish that story off, he just walks up with his personal checkbook and says, so how much do you want for that? And I'm like, well, I didn't expect to get paid for this. He's like, pick a number, any number. What do you want? I'm like, $10,000. Okay, here you go. The only reason I mentioned the numbers earlier, I only learned that afterwards when I'm holding the check and I'm like, wow, that was really easy. I'm like, I looked up, I gave it back to him because I'm like, I think my accountant will not like the taxes on that. And he's like, all right, well, if you ever want the check back, tell me and I'll give it to you. But it's one of those, no, that's the reason I figured out the number. I told the lady that I was calling the whole time. And she's like, oh yeah, like he essentially made $1 a package and he was doing 200 a K a year, a day. And you got him to $1 million a day. She's like, you could have easily asked for 2 million. He would have given it to you.
Yes.
And I would have looked at her. I'm like, okay, I might want to go ask for that check back then.
You might. Sounds like you earned it for sure.
Well, but that's kind of been my thing. So just talking on that. But what else? So under quality for you, what else do you look into? You were talking about processes and procedures and the double work. How do you know where the double work is? Kind of thing.
Well, you start at the end, and what are the defects? What's broken? How many returns do you get from customers? How long does it take to do task number, 104?
Right.
Has somebody assessed how long it should take? And do employees A, B, and C do it differently? Because you want to get uniformity. You want to get the best process as opposed to 3 people doing it 3 different ways.
Okay.
So you start with the end. How happy are the customers? How happy are you with the time it takes to get from the beginning of an order or a task to the end? So you want to gather some data, and then you want to get people together and discuss it. What do you see that's working right here correctly? What do you see that's not working quite so right? And brainstorm. You want to get people's ideas, not just one person. So it's getting the brain power of everybody to help solve problems.
Okay. So like a metaphorical, let's say it's an office marketing agency that calls you. Is it the constant calls from the client saying like, hey, you haven't produced what we said? Or is it more like who's the ideal instead of me speculating, who's your usual client that you deal with in your coaching and consulting that you help out with? I mean, you don't have to give me details of the exact company names, just generally who do you deal with?
Well, I do deal with the leadership.
Okay, the leadership, like
People
C-suite
running
area?
the organization.
Okay.
and they usually have some issues. So it could be too many customers calling. I'm not happy. It could be not enough customers. So what can we do to get more customers? It could be waste, whether it's time or bad products. It depends. If they're manufacturing or if they're service.
Right.
And usually the people who are closest to the customers are the ones who feel the heat, feel the things that aren't going right as well. And middle and upper management, if they don't step out to meet customers, spend time with them, they're not necessarily as in touch with
Yeah.
where the
100%.
sticking points are.
Yeah, the biggest one I've had a few like managers approach me, just like quick tips. What can we do to improve our stuff? I'm like, talk to whoever deals with the customers the most, whether
Right.
that's a returns
Right.
person. I said surprisingly, janitors have to deal with the customers a lot, and I hear
Sure.
things they really shouldn't, anyways. So talk to the janitor, talk to the return people, and I said, because a lot of them were grocery store. I said, talk to your clerks though that actually check them out. They hear everything.
Oh, they experience everything. Yes. Yes.
Hmm. And I told him, like, just talk with them. But I said, don't be closed minded. If they say, hey, the customers are being really mean and rude, that means you need to step up. Like you said earlier, like you're the leader, you're responsible for that kind of thing.
I was
And
at the grocery store the other day and there was only one checker and the
mhm,
line was quite long. And I asked her, can we call the manager and see if they can open up another aisle? And
mhm.
she said, we're shorthanded. The manager over there is working the self checkout. So that particular store must have had turnover
Or just everyone
issues.
called off,
I'm sorry.
or a massive call off too. Because
Yes.
I used to work at a grocery store before my current job, and yeah, call offs were some days you would hear nothing, and then some days more than half the crew just called off in one day. And I'm
Um,
like, how do you run a business when half your crew can disappear?
exactly. But one of my clients is a technology person, and he's a PC guru. He's brilliant, kind of crusty, but he's brilliant. And we discussed, you're going to need some help, and he can be a good teacher. And what he said was, they come in and they don't want to work every day. Or the
No.
other thing, they're telling me how to run my business. They're laid
Yeah.
off from Microsoft or wherever.
Hmm.
And he says, I don't need people like that. I expect people to come to work every day and be willing to learn. So his
Hmm.
criteria are coachable, I mean, willing to learn, and then have some basic background and be comfortable with technology to start with.
Well, yeah. If you get in IT or coding or or a computer repair business, yeah, you need to be well versed. You don't have to be the best in technology and coding, but yeah, that's a big one I've noticed too. That these kids, especially with TikTok, are like, I know how the business is supposed to be ran, blah, blah, blah. You can't do this to me because of California code, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, but also California code 30 instead of 28 overwrites that. And they're like, what? You're infringing on me. You're oppressing me. I'm going to sue you. And just walks away.
Oh my
And
goodness.
it's crazy. And there's a lot of these, I call them TikTok lawyers now. They're saying like, "Hey, if your law boss says this, that's retaliation, and we can get you a shit ton of money. Just give me a call." And it's like, but a lot of them have gotten the business owners in trouble. So it is another problem where it's like these kids have all this access to these scummy lawyers, and they don't need to know how business works. They make money either way, and it's
Oh
the
my
sad part now.
goodness.
And it's
I'm
sad.
not familiar with that depth here in this area, but wow.
Yeah, essentially, like I mean, in general, just a lawyer giving an order. Sorry, not a lawyer, a boss, a manager saying, "Hey, you're slacking. I need you to pick up the speed." I guess if they repeat that more than so many times a day, that's considered harassment by California law.
Well, I certainly wouldn't approach it that way.
Well, right. No, but I'm just telling you that's also
Yeah,
where sometimes the
interesting,
the
interesting.
the quality of people are getting scummier and scummier. So back to your customer, I can understand though where he's like, I only want excellence and I'll do it myself because yeah, the people are not the best right now.
I understand hiring people that are willing to work and willing to learn and get along with each other can be challenging. If there's so many jobs that they can just hop from one to another,
Mhm.
that doesn't give them incentive to stay at one place and try and make it better. But
Right. It's
again,
like,
it's the leadership's responsibility to make the workplace a suitable place, a place where you can learn and advance over time and
mhm.
contribute. So it's always the leader's fault. I mean,
It
Dr.
really,
Deming
yeah.
goes back to that. It's all the responsibility of leadership.
Mhm. It really is. Um, and that's the interesting part. A lot of like managers and business owners don't want to admit. They're like, no, 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 no. It's the employee's fault because they don't have their emotions in check, kind of thing. Which is not true either. Because
Oh,
then
it's not
so hypothetical. Let's say I'm a new client of yours, and I have a marketing. No, let's go for like a marketing agency. And I have like 40 people under me. But my problem is I'm losing people to my competitors for pricing. For quality reasons, because that's what you specialize, what would I need to do as your client that you would suggest to me to help retain my employees, but also maybe I'm burning out my employees too. We haven't gotten that deep in the conversation, but foreshadow kind of thing.
well, there are probably several elements to look at. If you're burning out your employees and you're burning out yourself, you
Okay.
don't have a good strategy. You might not
Okay.
have a good match of how complicated the work is, or what your role is, the leader, and the various roles of the employees. So I would take a look at what are you trying to accomplish? What are the skills you need? What is your timeline for delivering what your customers want? And take a look at what's wrong with those things. I mean, burning out your employees, you're probably going to have them leave. You have a turnover problem as well. If
Yeah,
people are
probably.
getting burned out, I don't want to work here.
Doesn't matter. He's paying me $40 an hour. It's not worth it, kind of thing.
That may be, and the leader needs to listen. I think that's the first skill I coach on, to
Okay.
get a sense of what is really going on. Again, listen to your customers, listen to your employees, listen to the informal leaders in your organization, because everybody has some people who are leaders among the worker bees,
Right.
your natural leaders. Find some people and close your mouth and listen and
Yeah.
take notes, and don't react in a negative. Well, they shouldn't do that. Listen for them to trust you that you're going to take that information in confidence and try and learn from it.
So again, back to I'm your client. Let's say I can't for some reason convince my employees to come into a meeting and tell me this. They think I'm going to fire them for some reason. That inviting them to my office, it's just they're too scared to. What are other ways I could get information ethically out of my employees without having to be like, get in my office now and tell me everything? Because that's not going to work.
Well, having an employee satisfaction survey regularly is
Like,
a way where they don't have to give their name,
okay.
and you can collect uh, information that you're looking for and some statistics.
So would that, when you say regularly, are you talking like monthly, quarterly, yearly?
Once a year in most places,
Okay.
you'd have enough that you can learn from it to adjust the processes and the recognition.
Okay. All right. So then I get an employee survey, and a lot of them are saying that generally I'm a good boss. I lead them well, but I'm unrealistic in my expectations. The quality that I expect compared to what they can produce, the gap's too big. So how would you help me address that to readjust my standards, kind of thing?
Okay. We want to spend some time on the definition of quality in your purview.
Okay.
Quality is different to different people. So you usually measure it by how successful the processes are in delivering the end product or service. So a gap in expectation needs good dialogue. Why
So
does management think it's 10 widgets an hour and what you're producing is 3 widgets an hour? So
right.
what is the process to build a widget? And early in management, you learn to do time motion studies. So how long does it take person A to do a widget, person B to do a widget, person C, and do they do it differently? So who's more successful, and how can we model that behavior or document the process in that sense? That person A is the most successful. So what can we learn from person A and then teach person B and C to do it that way? Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, that makes a
See
lot of
what's
sense. But
working and uh, document it, categorize it with the intention of continuous improvement. Part of quality is continuous improvement. You keep your eyes open for innovation, for small improvements. Innovation is big improvements and then small improvements as well.
right, yeah, like the small little things here or there, like maybe instead of an ergonomic correct chair, they actually just need a standing desk, kind of thing. And for Johnny, that's exactly what he needs, and his productivity goes through the roof because he's a kinesthetic kind of guy. But maybe like Lucy needs the ergonomic correct chair and the fancy keyboard and the rest and all that, and then her productivity can go up. Yeah, it's a not one size does not fit all,
Right.
but there's general outlines that you can follow for each. Okay, I get that. Yeah. And so, yeah, what I was leading to was like the 10, I wanted expecting 10 widgets. It's 3 widgets they're producing. And it's just like the quality of the product's good. I'm not really getting any returns. The customers are happy, but it's just my employers are like, boss, we can't do it that fast, kind of thing. So, yeah, that was really good. Thank you. So then the other one would be, let's say my metaphorical widget shop is that the employees are wanting more breaks because it's a really hot manufacturing environment and they're overheating consistently. But I can't afford constantly giving breaks, but I also do run the risk of them leaving because it's just unrealistic. If I was your client, what would you tell me to do to help improve the quality of their life, but also the productivity and safety too?
That's a really good question. With the climate change going on, and speaking in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
people who are working outside are fainting and they're having to drink water, wear hats and moist kerchiefs and stuff it's really up to management and what the best practices are from the healthcare side on how to manage people who work outside in the heat. I mean, people who do roofing, people who do picking, farming, doing farming and digging and picking and things like that. There are best practices that the healthcare organizations do publish on keeping employees safe. And then there's OSHA, because OSHA may have guidelines as well.
Right.
So
yeah, but like most. Sorry, I keep interrupting
employees. You're going to get sued. You're going to lose people as well. You have to take their safety into consideration.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Is like a lot of contracting companies and roofers, they don't care about OSHA or best practices. Like, just get up there, and if you feel faint, go in the corner, drink some Gatorade, and get back up there, kind of thing.
But I'm afraid you're right. I mean, it's really not ethical to do that.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
why
and
best practices.
I remember I used to work for it's weird to say, it was under the table, just cash only. I used to work for an ammo plant. It was out of a guy's garage. It was wild there. But the best practices, he actually said, he's like, you are safe here, but if you're looking up rules on how to do ammunitions, we don't follow any of them. And he's like, and technically this shop doesn't exist. And I mean, I made crazy money with this dude. Again, obviously he made way more off me, but it was just one of those, yeah, if I tried to like call whoever, be like the government, be like, hey, he's not following rule number 2 or 3 kind of thing. He literally is like, I could close up shop, move everything long before the government gets here. They won't even know I'm here. So he's like, and that's another one where a lot of businesses are ran like under the table. So if you say anything to, what are you talking about? You never worked here, kind of thing. That's another problem employees face. I mean, there's always the above board ones, and there's still shady managers that do that, but yeah, but a lot of people are still paid cash under the table, even though we're going cashless, kind of thing. So in that case, let's just say like I have a contracting company, and I'm not hiring illegal immigrants from Home Depot, but I'm hiring 20-year-olds in college that don't want a W-2. They're like, hey, instead of paying me 25 an hour, can you pay me $20 cash an hour? And I'll work for you however long you need it. And I'm like, cool. As the wonderful coach that you are, what would you tell me in that situation to handle my employees? Because that does still open me for a lawsuit, kind of thing.
As a certified management consultant, we commit to ethical behavior. So I could not work with someone like that. That's just against my principles and the ethical statement that I signed.
Okay.
I would say,
I'm sorry if I pushed you in a corner on that one. I was just curious.
Yeah, no, I can't deal with that kind of person.
All right, so that guy out of the picture. So if any of you were thinking of hiring her that do that, buzz off. But okay, so then let's just say I'm above board. But again, I'm still paying him above minimum wage, totally ethical, totally legal. But I am not like a slave driver, but I am it's like, hey boys, it's getting hot. Like, let's beat the heat, let's go faster, kind of thing. So when the heat of the day comes, we can just go sit under the tree and like relax. But it is intense leading up to that point. Is there anything in that you would recommend so my boys or gals are not burnt to a crisp, literally and emotionally, kind of thing?
Well, I get back to standardize the work. What is the mean time to do the widgets, and what's unreasonable.
What
Have
if
you
there's no one
streamlined the
set way though?
process as much as you can to make it simple, straightforward, step by step, documented and tested? I mean,
But
it sounds like somebody's being unreasonable, saying, go faster, faster, faster without real data. You've got to have some data in your operations to know what's reasonable and what might not be.
what if there's no one set way? Like the making caramel apples. There's no one set way of making caramel apples, kind of thing. I mean, yes, you can always have the automated machines, but this is just a mom and pop shop, hand dipping them, hand breading them, packaging them. They don't have the machines and stuff like that. I mean, I did it once on the side, messed up my hands doing it, but there was no set way. They just said hold your spike, either slam it or take a hammer and hit it, but careful where you hit the hammer because the thing could be off. And that's it. That's then they walked away. I was like, how does this work?
How does this work?
So that's kind of more what I was alluding to, where like even the people, they're like, there's no one way, whatever works for you, kind of thing. As long as it looks straight and that's all we want, kind of thing. So in that case, how would you, like the caramel apple example, how would you talk to the caramel apple lady that's paying everyone?
You might think about incentives.
Okay.
So if the top producer, I mean, you might rank the people from top producer to the newest person and pay them accordingly. So your top producer would make more money than your brand new person. And you would ask the top producer to share that technique that he or she is using to produce more product in a time period. Does that make sense?
No, it does. That's actually what I had to do to figure it out. I found the top dog and I was like, okay, what are you doing? And that's
See?
where and then he just told me, he's like, dude, it's really simple. And he actually pulled out this little doodad he made. He's like, I'll make you one. It's really easy, kind of thing. And so he's like, you just put it in, slam it really hard, perfect every time.
You do want your top producers to teach
Mhm.
and mentor others. And that's part of why they should be paid more.
Well, he was hard to talk to. He was like a stereotypical like high schooler with big headphones, like even bigger than mine. So that's where I had to like, and he was the kind of energy where like he's generally a nice guy, but if you're around him and you don't know him, he's like intimidating and scary, kind of thing. So everyone was scared to talk to him. I'm like, you know what? I'm that guy to ask questions. I'm just gonna ask him. Like, I don't want to keep hurting my hands. What do you keep doing? Kind of thing. He's
Well,
like, oh,
again,
little man.
leadership is important to recognize who are the top producers
Mhm.
and ask them and coach them to teach the others without being intimidating.
Or be like, what's your process? If it's unorthodox, can you at least explain the basics so I could write it down, kind of
Sure,
thing?
sure.
You know, like, yeah, there might be like from going from step 2, you skip 3, go to 4, you hit 3, and you're back to 5 and on, kind of thing. That might be a thing, but what's the steps in like in order that you have to do? Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. I like it.
That's what I say is this: there's a standard process, and maybe somebody has been able to skip 3 and 4 or 3 and 5, and
Mhm.
that could be an innovation. That may be
Right.
the next best process. So
So
keep in mind those people who are creative, who do come up with other ways of doing things, and then over time move that to be the new standard. You're always
what
looking to be better and use ideas that are working.
so in like that case, let's say back to the caramel apple thing. I have my caramel apple shop and everything. Um, and let's say I do have my best producer telling me stuff, but then let's say little Jenny figures out, oh, we can skip step 3. That like step 3 is just completely irrelevant and we're not affecting health code. like telling me that and we have to prove it, should I give her like a bonus or a gift card, or what would you recommend in that case? Like, I genuinely want to reward my employee, but I don't want to give her like $500 because it's like, it's okay. It's not actually $500, but I wanted her to know, like, you made a great improvement. Thank you, kind of thing.
I've seen teams get together and brainstorm what what they would appreciate. So they
Okay.
can come up with a set of incentives or attaboy, attagirl. That's a typical kind of one with a small amount of money, or a half a day off, or bring in ice cream every 2 weeks or something like that. Listen to the employees and what would ring their chimes.
So essentially, like, when you're having all these strategy meetings with your employees, it doesn't have to be blatantly obvious. Be like, hey, so like, hypothetically, if I want to reward you guys, what would you want? They'll all just be like, oh, I want ice cream, $100 for gas because gas is expensive, stuff like that. And you just kind of like take mental notes, not like cynical, like, okay, I
Sure.
get it.
Gift
Right.
cards for gas, that's a terrific idea.
Yeah, gas is going up again. So yeah, that's like, you want $100 for gas? Here you go. Tank of gas for you.
So, ask them or have them brainstorm and then see what crazy ideas come along that really would cheer them up.
Nice. So I know this is not your specialty and you don't have to answer it in any way, but let's say kind of like your client that's having trouble hiring people. He can find the source of people, the computer one earlier. Um, how would you, in a hypothetical sense, let's say I'm in his situation where I have this proprietary knowledge and software and all that, but but the people don't seem to understand it. Um, but I also can't get quality people. So what I'm trying to get to is, how would you recommend I filter people to find the quality within them?
Can you ask that again?
I know that was really rambling. Sorry. So essentially, what I was asking is, I'm like your computer client earlier that you mentioned, but I can't find quality people. I can find people, but they're not of quality that will stick. What would be some of your methods you can tell me as a client how to filter different employees coming on to like find the quality within them?
Well, sometimes you have to hire them and see, talk to them. This is the job, these are the expectations, and watch them work and coach them and see how they're doing. I mean, some aren't
Okay.
going to stay. If it's an attitude of, I know better than you, if it's an attitude issue, that person's not going to work out.
Right.
I mean, it's two-sided. The employee needs to learn, and the boss needs ways to teach and coach and nurture and not be real hard on them necessarily. It's attitude is really important
Would
on
it
both.
also be like the emotional intelligence of the situation too?
You bet. You bet.
Okay. Okay. So then, so what I was trying to get at is essentially like, there can obviously, now there's loaded questions. I heard this at a coffee shop. It was really funny. One of the guys said a great way to filter people that follow orders and do what you say, kind of thing, is he says you do your interview and you have all this different stuff, but he said a big one is, he's like, I would always leave a book on the floor right next to the chair where they're coming in. And he's like, I would see if they pick it up and put it on my desk. It didn't have to be in the best place, just to see if they'd even pick it up. Because he said that means to go above and beyond without being told what to do. I was like, that's interesting. Okay. He said, another one, he's like, it's funny, but he's like, it tells you if people follow orders well is, hey, on your way out, can you write something on that whiteboard? And I was like, okay. And that's where it was like a joke. I said, then I'd probably write a whole freaking story because you said write something like the action. He's like, no, I wanted the word something. And I'm like, clearly I don't follow orders well then. When I looked up, actually, I really don't follow orders well.
Well, I want to pause at
Okay.
your use of orders. The very old-fashioned type of management was like the military,
Hmm.
where the upper officers give orders and filter down. The
Right.
more modern strategy of management is not ordering.
It's
It's
more facilitating.
it's having a clear definition of what the job is, having people to give
Okay.
coaching. Here's how you do it. Here's a different way to do it. Side by side, watching them and helping. And it's not telling a person. It's not the more modern management is not giving orders. It's describing the job, helping them with it, measuring results, coming back and improving, not criticizing. I mean, the fact the word order sounds like it's easy to criticize. And you don't keep employees happy
If you're
in a
constantly criticizing them, yeah.
situation with a lot of criticism.
No, yeah, and you
So
get
I
mad.
challenged that word that all of management is ordering.
Well, no, he said people who follow orders well. That's where he said
Yeah,
the
but
right something.
that to me, if you're judged on following orders, doesn't allow your creativity to come out. Because
That is
we
true.
learn so much from brand new employees.
Yeah, because they're
They
not
watch
biased
what
at all. They
happens, and um, there's a story from Marriott and Marriott of hotels,
Mhm.
and they hire new people, new maids and things. And so at the end of a week or so, they talk with them to see, what could we be doing differently? What is the better idea? Because a brand new set of eyes can spot gaps or inefficiency or, why are you doing it that way? That's dumb. Uh,
Mhm.
so Marriott is known for really listening to new employees. So
Interesting.
that's an example. Again, I emphasize the word listening from
Oh no,
the
and that it's
beginning.
true. Well, and that's the only reason I bring that one up. It was interesting because I told him, I said, yeah, if you asked that on the way out, I would, when you say write something, I would just write, I really need this job. Thanks, Josh, kind of thing. But that's where I told him, but that is interesting. The to tense on word, yeah, the meaning behind the word, I took it as write in action. You meant follow like the literal words. I said, yeah. I said, and that's what I told him. I said, that would be a great filter system. I said, but do you rely on that only? He's like, no, no, no. There's a lot of them. He's like, maybe you are the creative I need, which then all those rules don't even apply. I almost want you to break them to know you're the correct one, kind of thing.
Well, you
And it
seem
was
to
just,
be very creative and
yeah,
willing to come up with lots of ideas.
yeah. Well, the one thing he mentioned, I actually laughed at this because he said, I think this is one of my guests now. He told me sometimes I get really bored and I just want to spice things up during the interview process. He's like, there's not much you can spice up without getting in trouble. And he's like, so I'll write in the middle, same text to say, hey, if you really want this job and you made it to this point, if you can print a photo of your favorite cat or your cat, you'll get a lot of brownie points. Extra brownie points if you can print it in color. And he's like, and if you can bring this to me while wearing an American flag pin on your left lapel, you practically guaranteed a job. Well, all the dudes and most women didn't, but there was these two little petite shy ladies that had the color printed thing and the American flag pin. He was not expecting hiring two people, but he took his receptionist like, okay, we need to hire two people. I can't let these two go. Put them somewhere, and then we'll figure out where to put them after that.
Okay.
So that's another one he told me. He's like, yeah, he's like, I was looking for one person. I got two instead.
I'm sure they were very grateful.
And he paid him well. I know he said, he's like, they were so skilled and they undersold themselves. He's like, normally my recruits, when they're first hired, they're like, $15 to $18. He's like, they were so skilled, they instantly went up to 30 an hour.
Right.
He's like, I could not afford them to leave anymore. So yeah, I think last I chatted with him via email, those ladies were up to like 45 an hour. And he's like, and they love it. I'm like, good.
Terrific.
I said,
Outstanding. Pay for performance.
right?
Excellent.
Oh no,
Excellent.
and that's what he said. He's like, everyone says pay yourself first. He's like, no, pay your employees well, and they will take care of you, which means you get paid more. Kind of thing.
Yeah.
He's like, but always remember to pay them well. Because if you don't, and you don't give them compliments, there's some other company that will pay him more, maybe
It's
treat him
the
like
compliment, it's the appreciation as
Mhm.
well as the pay. You need both.
Yeah, because his business was pretty rudimentary. I think it was more like IT call center stuff. So these ladies were more like the back end bookkeeping and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
they didn't even need to know about the computer stuff. And that's where he's like, but people don't want to do bookkeeping anymore. And the fact that these two were okay with it, he's like, I had to pay them to stay.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And
It's some customization for each individual, a little bit of customization.
exactly. Perfect. Yeah. And that's so would you also kind of like that example? Like if I have a top performer, he's producing 25% above average. Should I pay him average 25% more than everyone else? Kind of thing?
I wouldn't give a number, but certainly more than average. And uh, employee of the month, stuff like that, other kinds of rewards, and um, write him up in a magazine article or something.
Okay.
Multiple ways of appreciation. Certainly money is first, but it's not the only thing.
Well, I was gonna say, like, let's say he's a top performer, and I do give him a bonus, but let's say maybe company policy, you get paid you're guaranteed vacation kind of thing, but you're not guaranteed paid until third year kind of thing. And but it's like if he's a top performer, it's like, you know what, we'll give you 1 week paid, even though it's not your third year, like that's your bonus. Go have fun, kind of thing. Is that another way you could do it?
Sure. Keep an open mind and be creative,
Okay.
and tailor the incentive or the appreciation to an employee.
So
I
I'm
mean,
just
you
kind of
have
talking
company policies.
right.
You
Yeah,
said that.
don't affect don't interfere with company policies, but like you can get creative kind of
Right.
thing.
Right.
Okay. Nice. Is there any topics in particular that I might have missed that you would like to talk about?
You've covered a lot of ground on
Well, thank you.
leadership and management, and um, keeping employees happy. Um, so I mean, what I'm concentrating on is nurturing the leaders who are overworking, and to help them get more time so that they have a more well-rounded life. So
And
work-life
it sounds
balance.
and it sounds like if everyone's made it this far, it sounds like you are definitely the gal to call for that. It really does.
Right.
If I was in a position where I needed a coach, if I heard this podcast, I'd definitely be giving you a call. Be like, Margaret, yeah, I'm that guy on Josh's show. I need help.
Great. Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much. It's an absolute honor and a pleasure. I learned a lot, especially about like you mentioned earlier, like the feminine energy. I did learn a lot about that. Like I do realize like I do have more masculine tendency for things, but I try to be softer with people now. And especially listening to you, it's like, oh, there's still definitely places I can work on, kind of thing.
I'm not trying to be critical.
Oh
I'm
no, no.
just
I'm
observing from my experiences, and um, it's tailoring the coaching to the person and the situation.
right.
There's no one right, as you say, there's no one right answer for everybody.
Right. Yep.
And how listening is so important for leaders.
It really is. And it's a shame. It almost seems like leaders in general don't want to hear what's important. until the bottom line's affected. But then by then it's too late, kind of thing.
It's probably pretty late then. If they don't want to hear, then they're not subscribing to continuous improvement.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to hear what's wrong or what somebody thinks is wrong, and then decide, is it really wrong? Do we need to do something about it or not?
Like this one gentleman I talked to, he was a big, like, he had like 800 people under him, and like I think he was like 45, 50 managers under him, big district guy. And I asked him, like, 800 people, that's a lot of people to tend to.
Yes.
I said, first of all, how did you keep yourself sane during all that? Secondly, I said, the employee morale must have been really hard to monitor because that's so big. And he said, you know what? He's like, what I did? He said, I would find people that are ambitious, but had a good, hearty personality that were not jerks. I'd promote them, see if they could handle the promotion. If not, no biggie. I'll put them back somewhere else. But he said, if an employee, he said, one employee actually made it the point to come to my president office and tell me this. He would have to throw up every day before he came to work just to do his job. I looked at him like, okay, that's not good. If you're physically getting sick before a job, he's like, I literally went down to HR and I told him, I said, hey, give me a day or two. I'll get on this, make some calls, kind of thing. He went to HR and says, so-and-so is getting sick every day, dreads coming to work. This is a HR problem. Find him a new job by tomorrow. And literally the guy got a call the next day and it's a job he loves. The HR essentially called him. I figured out that he likes numbers. So they put him in more of like a data entry. Dude, he's like, the day I left, the kid was still happy. I'm like, oh my God, it was amazing. HR just called me and just moved me. He's like, I never told him. I'm like, no, you don't have to.
Round pegs in round holes and square pegs in square holes.
Yeah, and that's where he's like, and that's where he said, but he's like, the key was delegation, but making sure my managers essentially had the same mind that I have. And if they were underperforming, I would tell them, okay, what's going on? Because you're way down below everyone else and people are leaving. And I tell him, he's like, and they tell me, because they had to, it's their job. If they lied, I'd fire them. And he said the same thing. It's like you. And he's like, okay, you're not following procedures. Obviously, you're not listening to employees, kind of thing. Like, do you want to still be a manager? Or do you want me to put you somewhere else? Do you think I'm someone underneath you? And I said, wow, okay. So I'm like, so good management has always been known, but for some reason corporations don't want to do it. He's like, oh no, it's all bottom line. It's the manager's choice to do it. He's like, I lost a lot of bonuses the way I manage people. He's like, but I had the whole company wanting to come and work under me. That was priceless. He's like, that was priceless. He's like, I love that.
Absolutely.
So,
how are we doing on time?
Oh, I'm doing good. Do you need to get going?
I do.
I do. Okay. So then quickly tell everyone where you're at, where they can get you, and then I'll put the links in the description.
I am Margaret Dorchester.
Okay.
And my email is first name at first initial last name. So Margaret, Margaret, at Dorchester, DORCHESTER.com.
Wonderful. Any social media you're on, or just the website's good for you?
More LinkedIn than anywhere else.
Got it.
And I'm happy to give a half-hour free coaching session.
Mention Josh in the message.
Of course.
I was say it's not free unless you message me.
Yes. Thanks to Josh Bolton. You bet.
All right. Have a good one with your client or podcast interview. You'll be getting an email pretty quick too. So
great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you.
Absolute honor and a pleasure. Big hugs. Thank you so much. All right. Thanks. I don't want to hold you too much. Bye. Well, congratulations. You made it to the end. You're an awesome person. Not many make it here. So, being the awesome person that you are, can you do me one more awesome favor? Can you rate and review this on whatever podcast services you're using? If you do it on Apple, and you leave an actual written review, I have a thing on my website. I will take your written review and post it for all to see. Congratulations, you're permanently sealed on my site. Otherwise, I am trying to do YouTube more and live streaming. I will try to put as many of the YouTube links in the description of the show as I can. So give your boy some extra help over on YouTube. Watch my videos. I just mute it and change the channel, change the window or something. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for being awesome, and see you next time.